We'll get started real quick. So, what is this video? Yeah, Jeannie. Jeannie. I always, yeah, it's like, I was poor Jeannie. I always butcher her name whenever I see her. And she's been a long time supporter, and I always feel so bad. I don't know why I do. Janine. Like my brain, it's just one of those things where my brain just refuses to push that pathway through, you know. All right. So this discussion is going to be why we shouldn't call what happened in Iran a war, especially with in the US, and why that's important, right? So it I'm gonna call it a terrorist action because that's exactly what it was. It was a terrorist action. Now, I'm not reaching for semantics. This isn't copium. This isn't like to try to make it feel better. The problem with calling it a war is that's exactly what the fascists want you to do, and that's what they want to do to legitimize it. Because unfortunately, in the United States, we love war. War is a positive thing for us. It's something that defines our culture. Out of the 232 years, 232 out of 250 years of our existence, we have been in conflict with another country. Our nation, our history, our identity, all of it is based around war. War is not a pejorative in America. It's not. And it feels like that's what's happening. But the problem with that is, and also, when you want to oppose it, you reach for you think what you think is your biggest tool. And I'm here to tell you why calling it a war is not your biggest tool in opposition. So let's break it down, right? What's the big deal? Here's the problem. All the same folks that jumped and called it a war the last time we bombed Iran, which wasn't that far back, what did it amount to? Did we get in a war with Iran? No, not the way you think of war. Because when we think of war in popular imagination, what you think of is people being mobilized, a draft being called up. It's World War II. That we're going to war. It's mobilization. It's mechanization. It's all these things that go into war. That's not what happens. That actually hasn't happened in a long time. Not since Vietnam. In fact, the last war we had, which actually went through Congress and got a coalition, was the Iraq War. And what did George Bush tell people? Oh, it's going to pay for itself. It'll be over in 90 days. You're not going to have to sacrifice. Go out and buy something. The most you had to do was buy a yellow ribbon magnet and slap on your minivan. That's how most Americans think of war. It's just something else that's going on in the background. When an actual war is something that takes up your entire economy, your foreign policy, it colors everything. Go ask Putin how that's working out for him and Russia right now, or how, unfortunately, the Ukrainians are having to deal with it. That's war. That's what an actual war is. What's happening in Ukraine is an actual war. This is an act of terrorism. And that is something the regime excels at. They do it domestically and they do it internationally. They're terrorists. That hits a little different, right? When you say that. When you actually say the United States is a state sponsor of terrorism, when we are a terrorist nation, because that's what it is. It's terrorism. You can't spin that. You can spin war because, again, we spin war for a lot of things. We have a war on drugs. We have a war on poverty. We have a war on crime. Every single social ill, we have a war. Everything in America is a war. Even in marketing, the war on fat, the war on bad food, The war on this, the war on that, the war on misinformation, the war, the war, the war. Everything is a war. Courtney's right. It's actually a buzzword in the American psyche. It's not a pejorative to most people. And the regime wants you to keep calling it that because it makes them, it plays into them being strong because war fighters are strong. Good morning, Stephanie Wilson. How you doing, Doc? That's what they're playing into. But terrorists are bad. There you go. That's, as Courtney brought up, the Department of War. They they had ridiculous sounding names like Operation Epic Fury. That sounds like a 14-year-old in middle school, in some war fighting sim created that name. But it's absolutely for branding purposes. That's what is happening now. This war is branding. Now, I'm going to tell you what's not going to happen, most likely. We are not going to an actual war. We're not. Yes, we're going to bomb. We're going to bomb Iran maybe a couple more times. They're going to lob missiles in there and they're going to kill school kids, which, let's be honest, America, like this regime doesn't care about kids. They don't care if they die. The Epstein files are proof of that. Their lack of gun control is proof of that. They could care less. That's why they're terrorists. But an actual war with a draft, with boots on the ground, with taking and holding territory, with actual regime change where you have to prop up an opposition government, basically Iraq, that's not happening. That's not going to happen. Because for that to happen, Trump would absolutely have to get congressional approval. He will not get it for this. Not now. It's not happening. We're going to lob bombs against each other. That's basically what's going to happen. And then in a week, when the next manufactured crisis comes, we're going to forget all about it. We're not going to be talking about a war anymore. Kind of like what happened last time. And that's the problem. Is because we forget about it. Because again, we have so many wars in this country, it's just another thing. That's it. And that's actually worse. Because we commit acts of terrorism and then for the rest of us when it blows down and we go, "Oh, okay. Oh man, it wasn't as bad as we thought." Oh, we didn't get into an actual war. Okay. And then, oh, here comes the next crisis. All that is designed to keep us off balance. It's for us to keep chasing the shiny object. Hence the distraction aspect from the Epstein files. That's what this is about. For Israel, it's the same thing. Netanyahu's not popular. It turns out a lot of people aren't in the world and in Israel are not cool with a genocide in Gaza. They don't know what to do. So they're like, "Oh, we're just going to attack Iran. We're going to lob a bomb over there." And that's it. It's a distraction by the Epstein class and those in power to try to stay in power. And the sad reality is it's just the next one. Because again, I've said this many times, wars are hard to do. They're hard and they're risky. They're never, you know, they're never easy. and you can lose. Trump doesn't do hard. He just doesn't. If there's one constant, he doesn't do hard. He will make a show of things. Yeah, you're right. You're right, Steph. We do suck at real wars. We're terrible at them, actually. You know, we lose a lot of wars. And he doesn't care who dies. Yep. But who gets caught in the middle? We do. Actually, the people in Iran. The Your average Iranian that's just trying to live their life, that's trying to just do their thing. You know, they're the ones that get caught in the middle. Those 57 or more school children. I think they're girls that were just going to school, just trying to live their lives. They get caught. And you can talk about Ukraine in the same way because you've seen Putin do the same thing in Kyiv, launching missile strikes, drone strikes at civilian targets. It's terrorism, pure and simple. It doesn't matter whether it was careless or not, because the thing about it is even in, like, say, criminally negligent homicide or anything else, when you do this, when there isn't, you know, a reason to do it and it's an illegal act, it doesn't matter whether it's careless. What was the reasoning? Regime change? That's not really a good justification for war under the UN Charter, because you can claim that about anything. That's why the Iraq War was so controversial. But Bush used whatever leverage and credit he had from 9/11, and that's why he had to link Saddam Hussein to 9/11, which he had nothing to do with. By the way, the Iraq War was what woke me up politically. You know, I was out of the Marine Corps. I had friends that went over. That was the thing that motivated me to get political instead of just being like, oh, I don't do politics. Yeah, it was that. But that's why that justification linked to weapons of mass destruction, i.e., imminent threat. And he was linked to 9/11 when he wasn't linked to 9/11. And then Dick Cheney, Liz Cheney's dad, went in with Halliburton and they got rich off oil. It's illegal, you know. And so I don't think they meant to target those kids, but it doesn't matter. You know. Yeah, Pac Safety just brought up a point that it's, attacking Iran helps Russia because they're struggling and their main export is oil. Yeah, I mean, that could be a reason too. I'm sure there's multi-reasons why we have decided to attack Iran. You know, and I think we'll probably attack them more. We'll attack oil refineries, we'll do this, and all that stuff. But an actual ground invasion, no. It's the same thing with Cuba, right? We're just going to starve these people. We're not actually going to go in because, again, going in, you're going to have Americans die on foreign soil. There's going to be questions. There's going to be like, why are we there? But a bombing, that goes away. And then if we're shouting over here, it's war, it's war, it's war, we look like, one, that's not gonna get, the right's gonna love that. Fascists are gonna love that because they love war. And the middle's gonna go, well, are we at war? I mean, I don't know. That sounds hyperbolic. Oh, yeah, Zolfina. Oh, yeah, I think Iran's absolutely being targeted. I think that, they've been isolated. I think Iran's been isolated by Western powers, and they're quote unquote easy target. And There's a sizable resistance movement in Iran, and so the problem with that is Trump, who's terrible at foreign policy, said, "You guys should rise up," and they did, and a bunch of them got, and tens of thousands of them got killed because those people rising up thought, "Oh, well, the U.S. is going to come in; they're going to support us," and that didn't happen, and they got killed, and that, frankly, is on us. You know, I was in Portland recently, visiting a friend, and I saw a protest for pro Iranian regime change by uh, Iranian dissidents, who were calling for it. And it's just like, no, I felt bad because I'm like, it's not going to happen. You know, Trump's not going in because it's hard. A lot of these Republicans, they they voted and went through Iraq. They understand, what's at stake if we actually. I mean, and Iran it is not Iraq. You got to remember, Iraq had like 10 or more years, like almost 12 before we invaded, where we basically had no fly zones, cruel sanctions, all this stuff, where they were a shell of their former selves. That's not Iran. Yeah, there's been sanctions, but that's not Iran. Iran can put up resistance. It would be a fight. People would die. And the American people have no stomach for overseas adventurism. In fact, a lot of them voted for Trump based on that calculus, even though it was a lie. And anybody with a lick of sense, even tactically, is gone. Strategically, going to war with Iran is a boneheaded move. And this is not to mention all the unethical and problematic, just immoral reasons to invade Iran. Because if you truly wanted regime change, this ain't the way to do it. We had a path to that. We had a path to regime change. We had a nuclear deal in place. In general, Zilfina, I think Americans we are struggling with enough stuff domestically. I think any kind of wag the dog. For those of you who aren't familiar with that term, wag the dog was also the name of a popular movie. What that means is basically you grab the dog and you shake it back and forth to make it look like its tail's wagging, right? It's not a happy dog, but you're making it the illusion that it is a happy dog. It's usually used in going to war. What it's used in this context is going to war in order to cover up domestic issues or some other issue in your country. So to answer your question, Zolfina, I think it's if I'm saying your name right, we're wagging the dog, and I don't think Americans have any stomach for it because what they're seeing from the Epstein regime, the Epstein class, and the Trump regime is they're being told the economy is amazing, and at the same time, when bad news leaks out, it's Biden's fault, and they're still dealing with it. That doesn't matter to people when beef is at an all-time high. When again, most people, they don't the problem is they don't sit there like, well, beef's up 15% across the board and blah blah blah. It's like most people don't do that. They don't sit there and calculate like, well, I'm actually paying more beef than I did last year and the percentages this and that. No. What they do is they go, damn, I used to spend $30 at the grocery store. That would get me 2 bags of food. It gets me 1 now. That's how people look at it. Because most people buy the same thing week in and week out. Similar stuff, right? Yeah, I mean, Karma just asked, "Are you concerned about terrorism?" Oh, hell yeah. Yes. But do I think that Iran is gonna invade on our soil, or if they activate if there's terrorist sleeper cells here? No. I think they're gonna retaliate overseas, you know? Oh, yeah, like, oh, Zofina, yeah, Zofina said, "Most Americans live paycheck to paycheck trying to survive with 2 jobs. This is why this act of terrorism." Oh, it's absolutely planned. 100%. There is a segment of the GOP. John Bolton was one of them, and he was and the whole reason he was in the first cabinet in the Trump regime was John Bolton was one of the hawkiest hawks, war hawks on taking over Iran. It's been one of their things they wanted to do for the longest time. It's why they never wanted a nuclear deal. It's why they wanted to try to isolate and make Iran a pariah. Like they absolutely wanted us to go in and occupy Iran and take their oil. It's the same thing with why they wanted to go into Venezuela. It's the same playbook. It's the same thing we're trying to do in Cuba right now, right? Like we're trying to starve the Cuban people and cut off their oil supply. Um, and my friend Arturo Dominguez has written a lot about this. They want, they absolutely want that. But the thing is, again, they're lazy and they want it in the laziest way possible. They want either a proxy to fight it or they want regime change. And so the regime change, like say, this is probably their goal is there's a mass uprising in Iran and they overthrow the Iranian government and then they take over and they go, please, United States, help us. And then that's when the United States comes in with money and, basically buys up and American corporations take over their oil reserves on the cheap and everything else. Or, states like Saudi Arabia or, our allies in the Middle East. That's probably their plan. It's moronic and it's asinine and it has no understanding of the culture or different sects or people in the Middle East. You got to remember when we got into the global war on terror, and this still holds, right? People didn't know there were like there's meetings like it was a it was a meeting in the Bush regime where a high level CIA advisor came out and the people wanting to prosecute the war in Iraq didn't know the difference between Sunni and Shia. And he was just left baffled and stunned at the ignorance. That's even more so now. They have no idea what they're screwing with over there. And attacking Iran, like this is the kind of thing that really kicks the hornet's nest. So, yeah, I mean, was it planned? Yes. Was it planned properly and do they even have a concept of the consequences of this? No. Not at all. And what I can tell you is the mood of the American people is absolutely 100% against, overseas adventurism. I'm on a live right now. All right, one sec. I'm on a live right now. What's up? Okay. Yeah, no. I mean, the economy is going to push, I think is absolutely going to drive this. You know, we're 100% not we don't want any more overseas adventurism. We just came out of a generational conflict, literally lasting 20 years in Afghanistan and Iraq. The American people have no stomach, you know, no stomach for any of this. But that's the thing is what the Bush regime is going to try to do, again, because this is all they know, which is just the hammer and breaking things, is ignite a regional conflict. Everybody's at war, like, oh, we got to go to war. We got to do stuff. Congress pass a wartime resolution. Oh, we can't have elections, can't have the midterms. Get away from the Epstein files. Iran, 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 Iran. And that's what they're trying to do. But the American people don't have any stomach for it. Our allies don't have any stomach for it. We are not going to get a coalition of the willing like we did in Iraq. Funny enough, on that, recently, for those who forgot, Trump insulted our allies by basically claiming that Denmark didn't do anything to help us in the coalition of the willing, even though Danish soldiers died in Iraq. It wasn't just Americans that died over there or in Afghanistan. So, do you think the people of Europe or our allies or Japan, who also sent people into Afghanistan and Iraq, are going to have any stomach for this? No. God, no. Not a chance. Maybe we'll get the North Koreans like Russia did. Trump seems to like North Korea. Might get North Koreans to go in with us. Maybe El Salvadorians. Maybe every horrible country in the world. Sure. But not our allies, not our traditional NATO allies. Nope. Not our allies in Asia. Not Australia. So, I mean, I calling it a war gives it a justification that they desperately want. It's basically a fait accompli. It's, well, we're already at war, so you might as well pass a wartime resolution. Like, no, we're not at war. You committed a terrorist act. It was illegal. It was unjustifiable. It was unethical. He needs to be impeached. Now, will he? Probably not. He should. He should have been removed from office for this and so many other offenses. But unfortunately, he's providing cover for not only himself, but the Epstein class as a whole. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it, Zolfina, is like America and Israel are painting themselves into internationally. The regimes in both countries are trying to paint us into a corner where we lose our allies, we lose international support, and that is a tenet of fascism and authoritarianism. Think of it like an abusive spouse that tries to cut you off from friends and family and any other kind of support and connections. They do that, and so you have nowhere else to turn. You have nowhere else to, you know, and that's what's happening. But yeah, in this one, we're the bad guys, 100%. And you're gonna get people that say, well, "What about Iran killing its own people, like 40,000?" Okay, yeah. What other avenues could we have done with that regime? And did you support those people? Did they rise up and then you weren't there to help them? Well, there's that. And if you really want to start comparing about, oh, we're so good and they're so bad, take a look at what we've done in the last pretty much all the way through the 20th century into this century in South America. Just look up death squads, American backed death squads when we were fighting communists. Just Google that. American backed death squads in South America. Look up Pinochet. Look up a whole bunch of stuff. We're not the good guys. Sorry to burst your bubble. We are not the good guys. But we have to look that square in the face. We have to say this thing for what it is. I'm telling you, the fascists want to say it's a war because then that you got to come on board. You got to support your country. We're at war. They're trying to kill us. We're just trying to liberate the Iranians. Iranians who've never asked us to come in. At least not that way. Call it what it is. It's an act of terrorism. We have committed an act of terrorism. We are committing acts of terrorism against our own people in Minneapolis and Los Angeles. This is what fascists and authoritarians do. It's terrorism. Yeah, Vietnam was the same way. Go look up the documents that got released decades later about the Gulf of Tonkin incident, where it was a manufactured crisis. We got ice camps. We're putting up concentration camps again. We're not the good guys. And they know that. They don't care. Right now, the Trump regime is running interference for justice for the Epstein files for the victims. It is coming. They know it's coming. This is another thing that they are throwing against the wall, trying to hopefully somehow get out of this. And unfortunately, school children are dead in Iran because of it. They died on a missile lobbed by us or the Israelis. It doesn't matter. Someone pointed out Romulus city council and citizens are fighting warehouse purchased by ICE. That's how we stand up to this. I actually worked in Romulus, Michigan. That's where the airport's at. DTW. The airport itself is actually owned by Detroit. That's why it's called the Detroit, but it's actually in Romulus. I actually lived in Rachel. I lived in Belleville, just down the road a piece, when I worked out in DTW for American Airlines. So I'm very familiar with Romulus. And kudos to the people of Romulus, Michigan, who are fighting that. And that's how we do this. Yeah, we have to. This is an act of terrorism. This is like the people in the Epstein files are criminals and terrorists. That's what this is. With an act of war, whether it's illegal or not, then you start getting into semantics of like, no, it was legal. No, we were under imminent threat. No, it was illegal. No, 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 no. There is no parsing out terrorism. It is what it is horrible. You can't justify terrorism. That's what this is. It is unjustifiable. What happened in Minneapolis is unjustifiable. What is happening what is happening overseas in our name is unjustifiable. Yeah, it's not it if it's World War III, it's gonna be basically like us versus the rest of the world. You're not gonna have Axis and allies in this one. It's gonna be like it'll be us with a broken Russia and North Korea and a few little countries in South America, and everyone else is against us. If that's World War III, that'll be it. You're not gonna have Axis and allies. You're not gonna have, Central Powers versus Allied powers. None of that stuff. Nope. But the fear of Trump pushing the nuclear button and no one stopping him, that's not nothing. Yeah, that is not nothing. That's why he needs to be removed from power. Moves like this, no. Uh-uh. But that's the thing is we launch a nuke, it opens the floodgates for other people to do it on us. So, you know. Yeah, I laughed about AI chatbots controlling the nuclear codes. Yeah. God only knows if that's gonna happen or not. Oh my god. But that's the here's the good and bad thing about Trump, right? It's one of the same thing. He's lazy and he gets distracted really easily. So, he'll move on from this. That's but the problem is it's only to throw up the next thing of bullshit to try to get us to get off the Epstein files. That's what it is. And he doesn't care who it hurts or how much damage it causes or what it does. He does not care. And that is a big problem. It's and so we're in this space now where it's like by the end of the week, by the end of next week, we'll have moved on to some other crisis, some other manufactured crisis that's going to make you feel like you're drained and you're tired and you're just like, oh my God, I'm burned out. Like, can't we just go back to normal, please? That's all by design. That is all by design. That's what fascist authoritarians and abusers and narcissists do. They constantly move the goalpost. It's meant to keep you discombobulated and off balance. But you can't forget it because it'll be some other country, it'll be something else. And then we're going to have to say, look what you did in Iran. Look what you did in Somalia. Look what you did in Nigeria. Look what you did in Venezuela. Look at what you've done in the 8 countries you've attacked in 1 year. Look at the threats to Greenland. They're terrorists. They're not warriors. They're not soldiers. They're not manly men. They're not defending us. They're terrorists. We have a terrorist regime in power, and they're committing acts of terrorism domestically and internationally, and they need to be held accountable. And you need to ask your political leaders, are you on the side of the terrorists? Because this is terrorism, and I don't want this in my name. Yeah, Jason, that's what he does. He starts wars and then he ends them. It's like, hey, look, I ended a war I started. Fantastic. He's a terrorist. And that's what we need to ask our political leaders. Are you on the side of the terrorists? Because these are terrorists. Because war has a thin veneer of validity to it, even if it's illegal. Because now you're acting like a lawyer and you're getting into, is it a justifiable war? Is it legal? Well, it's kind of illegal, but it's not really illegal. There's a justification. No, no, no. There's no justification for terrorism. It's terrorism. Pure and simple. Call it for what it is. Israel and the US just committed an act of terrorism. And that's it. So we'll see how this shakes up. You know, it's if it's heavy and it feels like, you know, it's a lot, it is a lot, you know. But you can't there's nothing we can really do about it now. All we can do is just keep speaking out and keep doing our thing, rest up when you need it, because we got a long way to go. But it's heavy. It's definitely something I didn't want to wake up to, you know. I mean, I think about, I'm seeing that little kid in that the hat, whatever hat it was, where ICE used them. to get to his dad, and I think about that little kid, and I think about all those little kids who got terrorized in Minneapolis, and now there's dead kids in Tehran or just going to school, like, who had their own little kid backpacks, whose moms made them, moms or dads made them lunch, and they were going to learn about whatever, math, science, just being kids. And the parents let them go to school and didn't know that is the last day, the last time that they're going to see those kids. They're going to see their kids. That they were brought down in a hellstorm of fire, launched from, you know, lau- launched in our name. Hey, what's up, Eric? And I just, and it doesn't matter if they're Iranian children, if they're children in Minneapolis, or they're in the Epstein files, or they're kids, and it's unjustifiable. And I think honestly, like, that's beyond all the political talk and the semantics and the definitions and the this and the that and the strategy and the kids died. And that's how you need to think. That's why you can't let this go. That's why we can't, we can't. Once this passes and the next piece of bullshit comes up, we got to come back to it. Because again, you know, the same thing happened in Venezuela when we kidnapped Maduro. We're acting like terrorists because we are terrorists now. This is a terrorist regime. Hey, what's up, Dana? And little kids are dying. The reason you call it is terrorism is a tactic that uses fear and terror to achieve a political result. That is the definition of terrorism. That's what this is. They're going to say, like, well, no, we tried to take out the Ayatollah. It was a military strike. Hmm. Okay. But the funny thing is just like kidnapping Maduro, that doesn't collapse the Iranian government. So now what? You're just assassinating you're just bombing world leaders, and 60 kids or whatever happen to get caught in the crossfire. Man, I'm so sick of seeing dead kids. I'm so sick of reading about dead kids. I'm so sick of it. Palestinian children in Gaza starving, getting shot, kids in Iran. God, I'm so tired of it. I'm so damn tired of it. Kids in America, I don't give a shit if I don't care if they're immigrant kids or whoever they are. I'm just tired of kids getting harmed or brutalized or, everything else that is just too horrible to just even, I don't even want to talk about it. That's why we can't forget this. That's why you can't let it go because they're going to move on. I'm telling you, they're going to move on and they're going to come with the next piece of bullshit and they're going to wave in front of us and say, hey, man, yeah, this, come after this, come after this, come after this. Nope. Don't forget them kids. Don't forget them. Not the ones in the Epstein files, not the little kids that got brutalized in Minneapolis and their parents and these other people, and not those dead kids in Tehran, and not those dead kids in Gaza, and not all of them. Hold fast to it and fight for them because it ain't right. And they're doing this in our name. And it can't stand. Yeah, kids being held in ICE facilities right now. I mean, this is evil, pure and simple. There's no justification for any of this stuff. Yeah. We got concentration camps again in this country, or they're trying to. And well, they not trying to, they haven't. They're trying to get more, but man. So if it's a heavy day, yeah, it's heavy. It's supposed to be heavy. This isn't good stuff. This is horrible. You know, yeah. Yeah, Eric. Yeah. It's the eighth time, unfortunately. Yeah. The president of peace has bombed another country. Eighth time in 14 months. I guess every time he says I've brought peace to a country, he's really just being like he's confused peace for war. Oh yeah, it's the eighth time, Dana. There's a whole bunch of other ones we don't hear about, like Somalia, Nigeria. Like it's a lot. We're just bombing countries left and right. Yeah. I mean, terrorists are going to be terrorists, right? We're committing acts of terror. We're using terror and fear as a tactic to achieve a political result. That is terrorism. That is the literal definition of terrorism. And we're doing it. So don't call it a war. It's not a war. Wars in this country have an inherent legitimacy. There is no inherent legitimacy into this. It's just terrorism. Ask your congressman if they're going to support terrorism, if they're supporting the terrorists, because they're going to try to push through a war powers resolution. They're going to try. And if they don't hold the line on it in the Senate, it might just go through. That means more bombing and more killing. So, but we'll see. And now I wish I had less of a heavy subject for you guys to talk about. I don't. We're all living through this. Take care of yourselves today. Trust me, there will be more on it tomorrow, and there will be more coming down this week. So just do what you can. Uh, anyway, thank you all for being here. That's all I got for you. Keep the faith and defend democracy. Keep the faith. When I say keep the faith in yourself, keep the faith in your community, keep the faith in good Americans, good people around the world, because they're there. And there's enough of us to win this fight. We're going to win. It's heavy now, but we're going to win. Take care of yourselves, everybody. See you later.